Hi, it's David Lee here. Today I'd like to talk to you about why you shouldn't register domains with your web host, or in fact, the pros and cons of doing it both ways. Now, what am I talking about? Do you understand what I'm talking about? A registrar when it comes to the internet or a hosting company? Maybe somebody just takes care of it for you and you don't know the difference. And that's part of the problem for many people. They just don't know what's going on and the ramifications of decisions that are being made. I'll give you my own interpretation of what I'm talking about. What we have here on the left side is a domain registrar, and I've shown it with a post office as being a metaphor. A domain registrar is where you go and register the name of your website address, and it is the equivalent of having a letter with an address written on it, somebody's name and somebody's physical address where that envelope has to go to. So you go and register your website name, and it is pointing to a location out in the virtual world that is the physical location of where your website resides. Now, you could have, for example, you go to a company called Namecheap where you register your domain, and your host server could be, for example, GoDaddy. So they are separated, two different companies, one pointing to the other, but the effect is, the net effect is people, when they type in your URL, they come to the host where the application resides. The alternative is that you, for example, you use GoDaddy as your registrar and have them as your host. And you might think that's convenient, that's wonderful, and the net effect is still the same. That letter goes from the post office to the physical location, and that physical location is a website, a vacant piece of virtual land that you can put anything you like in terms of a website on. So let's go through advantages and disadvantages. In the article, he's talking about, again, what is a registrar, what is a domain, and the dilemma that we have. Well, the dilemma is that if you've got to go and deal with the company and you have a dispute, you may dispute an account. Or, as he mentioned here, that's what he's saying, if you get mad at the web host and you decide to move, or if all your websites, not just one, but you have many, many websites, like here he says, I've got 45 websites that I use, and I want to go and transfer everything, well, it gets very complicated. And also, if your host server gets hacked, last year, my dad's website got hacked. Not only did the hackers destroy his site, but they also transferred his domain away from his web host and took it over. It took ages for him to prove ownership and to get everything back. When your domains are separate, even if someone gets access to your files, your domains are safe, assuming you use a different password. These are different scenarios where you may think, oh my God, I've gone and taken the registrar and the hosting company together. Yes, if you just had one website, it may have been convenient, and the registrar and the host, the same company, the provider, can oversee the technical matters between what's going on. If there's any problems, yes, there's convenience. But the problem is when it gets bigger and more convoluted, when you've got lots of sites and you never thought about that you can run into problems because you haven't separated the tasks. So that's one of these are some of the reasons why you separate the two together. Now, another thing that you will not know if you're just a lay person going and getting this done, or somebody does it for you. When you do separate the tasks from the host server to the registrar, guess who's the person now in the middle, having to talk technical between both sides when problems come up, when they're not talking to each other, when the left hand is not talking to the right hand and the fingers are not talking to each other. Guess who's stuck in the middle, talking technical geek language between the host server and the registrar? It's you. And that's what happens. And that's why, as entrepreneurs, if you're an entrepreneur, you look at things and ask, why are they so? Why are things the way they are? And is it always the best solution? So when I'm developing my businesses and my services, I look at things like that all the time. What are the benefits? What are the disadvantages? And how can I find a way to take away all the pain and aggravation that most people would otherwise encounter when it's not necessary? So this is one tip. Be aware of the two challenges that you're going to have if you have the hosting company and the registrar together, and if you have them separated. Think about that when it comes to setting up your web presence on the internet. This is David Lee. Thank you.